Dr. JOHAN UVIN will be our opening keynote speaker. It is an honor and privilege to have him as our speaker. Dr. UVIN is currently the Acting Assistant Secretary for Career, Technical, and Adult Education for the U.S. Department of Education. This office is responsible for all of DOE's adult education, including secondary, post-secondary, and technical education. Dr. UVIN is also the co-chair of the Interagency Forum on Disconnected Youth, whose goal is to improve the outcomes of disconnected youth. In addition, Dr. UVIN helped develop a framework for federal efforts on immigration integration. Prior to being appointed to current role as the Honorable by the Honorable Arne Duncan, the U.S. Secretary of Education, Dr. UVIN led the Rhode Island State Office that oversaw adult education, career, and technical education. He has held many leadership roles in workforce development in private and public sector. Dr. UVIN has a doctorate in administration, planning, and social policy, and a master's degree in international education from Harvard University. He also holds a master's of arts in teaching English to speakers of other language. Dr. UVIN has demonstrated a lifetime commitment to workforce development and furthering education. At this time, please join me in welcoming Dr. UVIN to the stage.
But let me start by thanking you for having me and for that nice introduction, Mr. Davis. I'm actually very excited to be here. I received many speaking requests, but this one was very easy to say yes to, and I'll tell you why. When I read about your mission, and I quote, to enhance innovative educational opportunities for students through partnerships with educators, parents, businesses, and the greater community, I immediately identified with your work, and it's very, very close alignment with our opportunity agenda in the administration, as well as all the principles that we have for improving our high schools and transforming what happens in career and technical education. So I share and support your vision of creating a new world of learning. I'm going to talk a little bit today about why that transformation to this new world of learning is so important, and why what is still common practice into many of our schools and colleges is actually doing a disservice to many of our youth and adults. But let me start with a story, and then I will elaborate a little bit on what I've called a paradigm shift that we need when we think about all the opportunities along the cradle-to-career continuum. During the first term of the administration, we were preparing a blueprint for changing career and technical education in our country, and we were traveling around the country listening to students, to teachers, to parents, to administrators, to faculty at community colleges. And one day, we were in Detroit, Michigan, and I had the pleasure of meeting a very young woman of color in Detroit, and I will call her Fatima. Fatima grew up in Dearborn's immigrant community in a family with too many mouths to feed and wages too small to make that happen. Fatima was 19 when I met her, and she gave us a tour of her Hurley College CTE high school that focused on the life sciences and healthcare. She proudly shared with us that she graduated from high school with a high school diploma, an associate's degree in respiratory therapy, various industry certifications, a mentor, and a job at the partner hospital, and with the encouragement from the hospital to take advantage of the tuition reimbursement program the hospital offered, so she could pursue her bachelor's and then move on to medical school, so she finally could achieve her dream of becoming a primary care physician from and for her community. Through a strong partnership between her high school, the local community college, and the hospital business partner, Fatima achieved all of this at no cost to her family. Now, when you think about Fatima's story, that is the direct result of thoughtful innovation in practice. It brings together partners and learning experiences in a way that meets any policy objective that you may have. This is what it does. It makes school relevant. It offers work-based learning opportunities and STEM taught in labs by the hospital staff. It offers technical instruction leading to certification and licenses. It offers internships and practices and access to mentors and role models recruited from the hospital's professional staff who also looked like Fatima and lived her dream and aspirations in reality. But there is nothing about Fatima's program that makes it a typical program for the so-called college-bound, with an exclusive emphasis on college readiness. Nor is there anything about her program that would make it a typical career and technical education program. Her program brings together the best of all worlds and does away with what Secretary Duncan has called false dichotomies between college and career readiness and four-year college degree and technical pathways. It also proves that college can be affordable without further increasing the cost to the secondary and post-secondary partners through the smart use of dual enrollment, dual credit, and clever partnerships with business. A few years ago, McKinsey Global, which is a consulting company, released an important report called Education to Employment that showed a major disconnect between the views of educators about the relevance and responsiveness of curriculum and instruction on the one hand, and the views of employers and students on the other hand. And interestingly, students and employers had the exact same views. They both agreed that a lot of what is happening in our schools today does not get young people excited or even prepared for many careers. Educators in the survey on which this report was based felt the exact opposite. Now, one of the interesting findings was that while most youth and young adults knew that more career-oriented programs were more interesting and actually had better labor market prospects and outcomes, many of them actually gave in to parental and social pressures and expectations tied to getting a four-year college or university education. We've come to see that what many parents, and I'm a parent myself, school counselors, teachers, and leaders don't realize is that the world of work today is not the world of their perception of shop class when they were in high school any longer. And that the distinction between academic and career and technical education is actually no longer a useful construct. In conversations with Mona Murched, who is the author of this report, Education to Employment, we actually talked about the need to shift the way we think away from these false dichotomies to thinking about professions, and that we should think about education, training, and work-based learning opportunities all as necessary elements of that path to these professions. In conversations with Roberto Rodriguez, who is the president's education advisor, we even wondered whether the perpetuation of this false distinction is actually a function of the fact that we are continuing to use this language that makes a distinction between academic, college-bound, and career-oriented types of pathways. In the administration, what we have done is introduce this idea of career pathways. Similar to this professions idea that Mona Merched, who wrote that report, used, we have committed to pursuing career pathways as a promising strategy. In 2012, 3 federal agencies, Labor, Health and Human Services, and Education, made that commitment. And this past November, 13 other agencies actually joined in that effort. This idea of career pathways is really to think about education and training in a way that programs span what happens in our high schools and middle schools, what happens in post-secondary education, and in industry, all by design. This is about stacking opportunities. This is about stacking credentials. This is about creating entry ramps and entry points, about creating multiple exit points and off-ramps, allowing our young people and adults to prepare for and advance into progressively and continuously higher levels of employment and pay. We in the administration believe that these career pathway systems will be the emerging learning infrastructure of this century, because they bring together education at the secondary and post-secondary level with business, with industry, and in many instances with labor partners. These career pathways are about making what is happening in our classrooms more relevant. They're about creating work-based learning opportunities or community service opportunities. They're about using technology to allow youth and adults to master competencies at a pace that works for them. They are about academic skills, they are about technical skills, and they're about employability skills. Fatima's program, for example, is just a segment of a career pathway program built for preparation for a career in the life sciences and healthcare. Other segments of that pathway are a bachelor's in science, perhaps, professional training at med school, and maybe even some post-med school forms of specialization. Now, as we do our work, we have lots of opportunities to look at how to make our high schools more relevant, how to improve the outcomes of our community colleges, how to think about career and technical education in the future, how to think about solutions for disconnected youth. And what I'd like to share with you next is what are some of the principles that we actually use when we do that work? And I'll do this quickly. One is this idea of alignment. So what does that mean? It means that what happens in our classroom in one way or another should be connected to the world, to the real world. So, and particularly what we're interested in is making sure that young people and adults, when they leave our programs, actually have some skills that are useful in the labor market. The second principle is collaboration. And I think today is a perfect example of the type of collaboration that is needed. We need teachers and students and administrators and parents to work together, but we also need the secondary institutions to work with the post-secondary institutions and with our business partners. If we don't do that, we will not be able to create these career pathways and these programs that will give young people the skills that they will need. The third is accountability, right? I mean, you can't just do things and then not be responsible for them and not be accountable for them. So and what we think is that it's time that we don't just have education credentials like a high school diploma or an associate's, but that we actually think about education and training also looking at industry credentials, right? There are so many industries right now that if you don't have the certification or the licenses that tell you that you possess certain skills, that actually won't let you enter even the lowest levels of entry employment in certain sectors. So we need to sort of think about not just education credentials, but industry credentials that actually tell you that you possess certain skills. The fourth one is innovation. You know, it is unbelievable the amount of innovation that has happened over the last couple of years in our country. And we feel that when we think about how to spend our resources, that we should continue to provide resources to further stimulate innovation, because ultimately the students are the direct beneficiaries from these improved programs. And then we have these two, what I call cross-cutting themes of quality and equity. You know, the quality one is about making sure that all programs are rigorous in terms of the academics, in terms of the technical skills, and in terms of employability skills. It also means that all programs should have opportunities for work-based or community service learning. It also means that all of our programs at the secondary level should really have opportunities for dual enrollment. And that means that while you're in high school, you're actually getting college credit for the courses that you take. And then the second cross-cutting theme, and this is a really, really important theme, is that of equity. You know, there are many high-quality programs in our country. In our high schools, there are great academies. We have career academies. We have all kinds of new forms of early college high schools. But the problem is that these are being accessed by some students. What we're committed to is making sure that not just some, but all students have the opportunity to access these newer high-quality programs. So we believe that if we follow these principles, that we will actually end up with programs that are rigorous and that are relevant and that really give all students an opportunity to pursue what you call in your vision statement a new world of learning. I'm going to end my remarks with two things. I'm going to share with you an excerpt from a speech that the First Lady gave at the end of June. And then after that, I'm going to wrap it up with a story about my father. And I think at this time, we're going to have the excerpt from the First Lady's speech.
We're here because we believe in you. We do, absolutely, we believe in you. We're here because we want to make sure that you get all the skills and the tools that you need to reach your dreams. And those dreams are amazing and they're big and they're huge, so you need all the support you can get. We're here because we know that one of the best ways to do that is through career and technical education, CTE. And I don't know how many people know about CTE, but more people should. So CTE programs like these are good for students because they can learn new skills and find their passion. They're good for businesses because they can tap into a pipeline of skilled talent. And they're good for our country because these programs help us grow our economy, compete with other countries, and unleash the next generation of entrepreneurs and innovators. So I know we've got some folks here today from our biggest tech companies, and I want to challenge all of you and people across the country, educators, career counselors, our business leaders, everyone out there. I want you to put your heads together and think about ways to design new apps that will help students connect with the programs and the jobs they need to realize their dreams. To all of the young people here, I want you all to know that we are doing everything that we can to help you fill your potential. Whether that's making it easier for you to find career pathways just by using your smartphone, whether it's everything my husband is doing to bring down the cost of higher education and ultimately make two-year community colleges free. In addition to all that we're doing, we're depending on you as the students to do your part as well. And that means, you know, for all of you here, I know you're already doing it, but I can't say it enough. We need you all to just get it together, you know, to study as hard as you can, to put everything into your studies that you can do. Reach higher for yourselves every single day. There has to be a hunger that you all have that no one can fund for you. There can be no policy written to make you find your education, to prioritize your education. It's on you guys. And every day you have to come in with that hunger. You got to be ready. You got to be studying. You got to be in class. If you're online, you got to be there. You got to do those assignments, make it all happen. So you've got to finish the job. No one can do that for you. Not the president, not the first lady. I don't care how much money is out there. If you don't have it here and here, it's not going to happen. So we want you to complete your education. That is a must. There is no alternative. Finish your education. Whether you do it through one of these fantastic CTE programs or whether you go on to a community college, four-year college, whatever you do, you got to finish your education. But you got to get something. You know, you've got to get a degree, a certificate, something you've got to have. And if you do that, you'll have the tools that you'll need to fulfill your dreams. And as you work to get your education, I want to close with what I said at the outset. Just know that we believe in you. We do all of this because we know you have the raw material that it takes to do whatever is in your heart to do. Barack and I know this because we stand where we are today, because we had a lot of support and we had something in our hearts and minds that told us that we could do it. So we believe in you, all right? If you don't walk away from this with any other message, is that you got a whole lot of folks who think you can be great. And you've got a country who actually needs you to be great. We're counting on you to be that next generation to take over all that we're doing. So you got to be trained, you got to be ready, you got to be hungry, and you got to take advantage of every opportunity that comes your way.
So let me end now with a quick story about my father. I grew up in Europe in a very, very small town, about 20 minutes northwest of Brussels in Belgium. You know, when my mom went to vocational school until she was 14 years old, and my dad went to a technical high school looking into issues of horticulture, and he left when he was 18. Then he found a job as a laborer at a company that, interestingly, he ended up buying when he was about 40 years old. And when the owner of that company, which was a chemical engineer, died unexpectedly and too young of cancer, that's when my dad took that risk of buying that company. But after hours and on the weekends, this engineer who owned this company before worked on this idea of cloning and bioengineering before anyone in the world had even coined these terms. And just before he passed, way too young at age 64, he thought that he had actually perfected an approach to cloning plants and vegetables. And he was interested in doing that because he cared so much about too many of the plants and trees that had been destroyed by too many of our environmental impacts, that he said, you know, maybe I can use that technique to actually replenish some of these plants and trees. So, and my dad, he hung out with him after hours and on the weekends. And this guy, his boss, actually took him on as what I would have called an informal apprentice. And he taught him all the basics. But more importantly, he mentored him in research and in thought processes and how to think analytically and critically so that you could arrive at innovative solutions for very hard to solve real-life problems. He showed my father math and chemistry. My father's experience was very, very informal, and in addition to his own interest and motivation, was largely successful due to the good heart and the goodwill of his boss, who was willing to teach him, mentor him, challenge him, and give him lots of opportunities for applied learning and make mistakes and learn from them. This may have been luck. This may have been because of circumstance or serendipity. But I think our task together is to intentionally replicate the opportunities that my father had for all of our youth and adults, irrespective of their backgrounds, their circumstances, and the communities where they happen to have been born into. So thank you for your mission. Thank you for your vision. Thank you for your time, your attention, and for providing me with the opportunity to just spend some time with you today, and enjoy your conference.
Thank you, Dr. UVIN. We have a small gift in token of our appreciation.
Thank you very much.
Can we get the photographer up here, please?